Welcome back to the Perfectly Homeless podcast. We're continuing with the State Homeless Score project. Only 9 states left to go. I wonder which state gets passing marks. Series wrap-up. Should be interesting.
It definitely should be.
Today, we are evaluating Tennessee. And just a quick reminder for you tuning in, this is a dynamic scoring process.
Right, meaning the score is going to evolve in real time as we move through our 6 different categories.
Exactly, culminating in a final letter grade at the end. So, to start us off, let's look at the HUD data. Set the scene for us. What does the baseline actually look like in Tennessee right now?
Well, looking at the most recent point-in-time count, there are roughly 8,280 residents experiencing homelessness on any given night across the state.
Okay, so just over 8,000.
Yeah, and at first glance, the state might want to celebrate that because, strictly speaking, it's a 9.2% decrease from where things stood back in 2015.
Right, but the reality on the ground is a bit darker, isn't it?
It is. Much darker, because 53% of those individuals are unsheltered.
Wait, over half?
Yes. That's over 4,300 people sleeping outside. Not in a shelter, not in transitional housing, but in places HUD explicitly defines as not meant for human habitation.
Like cars, parks, or under highway overpasses.
Exactly.
And to really ground you in why that unsheltered number is just so stubbornly high, there is a massive structural math problem at the heart of this.
It really is.
Last year, according to state tracking, over 14,000 Tennesseans entered homelessness. But only about 5,300 were placed into permanent housing.
Which is a huge bottleneck.
Right. You have nearly 3 times as many human beings falling into the safety net as you have climbing out of it.
And that brings us directly to our first scorecard category, which is housing affordability.
Yeah.
Because, you simply cannot fix homelessness without affordable housing. And in Tennessee, housing costs are just skyrocketing so much faster than wages. Relying on data from the Sycamore Institute, there's a surprising fact here. We usually think of extreme unaffordability as a big city problem, right? Like downtown Nashville or Memphis.
Well, sure, the neon-lit streets.
But the data actually shows the gap between wages and housing costs is growing faster in Tennessee's rural areas than in its urban centers.
I really want to unpack the why here. How does a quiet rural county suddenly become unaffordable for the people who have lived there for generations?
Well, it comes down to out-of-state migration. People with higher incomes move into the state to escape high costs on the coasts, and they buy near the major cities.
Right, which drives urban prices up.
Exactly. That pushes middle-income city renters out into the suburbs, which drives suburb prices up, and then that pushes people out into the rural counties.
It's basically a ripple effect in a pond. You drop a massive rock, the out-of-state money into Nashville, and the ripples rapidly push outward.
That's a great way to put it.
But by the time those ripples hit the rural towns, those towns simply don't have the housing inventory to absorb that demand shock.
They don't. So the local retail worker in a small town gets outbid for the only available rental by someone commuting an hour into the city.
And we see the toll of this in places like Davidson County, where Nashville is, where 12,000 people experienced homelessness at some point last year. Families are just being priced out. Incredible. This lowers the overall picture.
It really creates a grim baseline. And this affordability crisis spills directly into our second category, shelter access.
Because if the housing market is locked up, people have to rely on shelters.
Right. But remember that math problem you mentioned. 14,000 entering, only 5,000 exiting. Because of that, the shelters are feeling an intense squeeze.
Which perfectly explains that staggering 53% unsheltered statistic. Those people aren't necessarily sleeping outside by choice. The shelters are just mathematically full.
Exactly. Advocates on the ground report that shelters are simply at capacity. But it's not just a lack of physical beds. It's also about the barriers to entry.
What kind of barriers?
Well, some traditional shelters require a state ID, or they separate husbands and wives.
So if you lost your ID or you refuse to abandon your spouse, you're locked out.
Yes. Though some areas are trying to adapt, Memphis and Shelby County have a strategic plan called 901 Home together.
Oh, right.
And they're explicitly trying to lower these barriers for existing shelters and expand capacity, taking people as they are.
But the logical next question for you listening is, if the shelters are full statewide, where do the 53% of unsheltered people actually go? Wow, this shifts the score. The lack of capacity keeps the state's momentum trending downward.
I think this is the perfect moment to pause and look at where we stand.
I agree. Let's pull up the draft score overlay. Right now, looking purely at the broken housing market and full shelters, the state is heavily struggling. But I need to emphasize a crucial caveat to you right now.
Right, this is not the final score.
Exactly. This is just the draft score. Additional categories, especially regarding how the state enforces laws around the unsheltered, may significantly change this result.
And that leads right into our third category, criminalization and enforcement. To understand how Tennessee manages the people left outdoors, we have to talk about a major 2022 law.
Let's get into it.
Tennessee actually became the first state in the country to make camping on public land a felony.
Wait, a felony? As in, if you pitch a tent on a grassy median because the shelter told you they are full, you face prison time.
Yes, a Class E felony. It carries up to 6 years in prison and a $3,000 fine.
That is heavy.
Very. And there's also a new state law mandating the Department of Transportation to clear encampments under highways within 30 days of a resident complaint. Plus another law making it easier to evict people from vacant commercial properties.
Okay, to be completely neutral here, we need to present the perspectives from both sides.
All right.
State Senator Brent Taylor championed these bills to establish a uniform, rapid statewide process. He was fielding massive constituent complaints about entrenched encampments, so this gives the state a standardized mechanism to disperse them quickly.
Right, that's the administrative perspective. But on the other side, housing advocates like Lindsay Crinks argue this criminalizes people who physically have nowhere else to go.
Because the shelters are full.
Exactly. And creating a felony record acts as a permanent structural barrier. You're giving an unhoused person a record that will guarantee they fail a background check for a future job or lease.
So here is a philosophical but very grounded question for you. If shelters are full and sleeping on public land is a felony, how does the system expect a human being to legally exist in the state of Tennessee? Based on this, the current draft score is taking a heavy hit.
It creates an incredibly harsh reality. And this connects directly to Category 4, vehicle dwelling friendliness.
Because you can't separate vehicle dwelling from that felony camping ban.
No, you can't. While there isn't a specific law highlighting vehicle dwelling, the blanket ban on using public property as a living space effectively sweeps vehicle dwellers into that same high-risk legal category.
If they park on a public street, it's public land.
Right. And there's a story from WPLN News about a woman named Lisa A., who lost her housing and lived in a camper van.
I remember reading this.
She had to park it in a friend's private yard just to avoid the felony risk of parking on public land. She wrote a poem called Felonious Sleeping about it.
It really restricts yet another survival option. Based on this, the current draft score is dropping further.
Yeah.
When you restrict vehicle dwelling without providing safe parking programs, you trap people in a corner.
Which brings us to Category 5, outreach and social services. We need to look at who is actually vulnerable here. According to McKinney-Vento data, which tracks homelessness in schools, there are over 25,000 homeless students in Tennessee.
Over 25,000 kids.
Yes, and a massive 79% of them are what's called doubled up.
I want to clarify what that means. Doubled up means living with other families out of severe economic hardship.
Yeah.
Right? Like a family crashing on someone else's living room floor.
Exactly. They are indoors, so they're completely hidden from the street, but it's profoundly unstable. And there are looming threats to the safety net keeping them indoors.
Like the health insurance cliff.
Right. The Sycamore Institute warns that as federal subsidies expire, near low-income adults will lose their health coverage.
And medical debt is a massive driver of homelessness. One hospital bill, the rent check bounces, and you're out.
Plus, outreach organizations face a new hurdle. A new law opens charities up to civil lawsuits if they help house undocumented individuals who subsequently commit crimes.
That creates a massive chilling effect on charities trying to provide outreach. But there are local efforts fighting back, right? Like Nashville trying to push prevention programs.
Yeah, Nashville funded an eviction right to counsel program to provide free lawyers to tenants facing eviction.
Just to keep people in their homes legally. Based on this, the current draft score is a mixed bag. You have local cities battling hard against some major systemic headwinds.
And that conflict between local strategy and state law really comes to a head in our sixth and final category, pathways to permanent housing.
This clash is fascinating. Nashville holds 40% of the state's unhoused population, and they've tried a slow, housing-first approach.
Moving people into transitional motels and permanent housing before clearing an encampment.
Right, but that directly collides with the state's new mandate to clear highway camps in 30 days.
You see this with Old Tent City in Nashville. Residents got 60-day local eviction notices, but state law demands 30-day clearances. The timelines simply do not align with reality.
It's messy, but we do need to highlight the bright spot here because it's a huge one.
It is the biggest positive surprise of the episode. Tennessee has achieved a massive 24.9% decrease in veteran homelessness just since 2023.
Wait, really? A quarter of the unhoused veteran population?
Yes. Bringing the number down to just 570 veterans statewide, mirroring record lows nationwide.
Amazing. This raises the overall picture. So, wrapping all this up, let's summarize the narrative for the final scorecard.
On the strength side, we have that historic success in housing veterans and localized efforts in Memphis and Nashville to lower shelter barriers and fund prevention.
But the major weaknesses are severe. The stark math of 14,000 entering homelessness versus 5,000 housed, a severe lack of shelter beds, the rural affordability crisis, and the heavy reliance on felony criminalization.
So let's rapidly assign the letter grades. For housing affordability, I'd say a D. The demand shock in rural areas is outpacing wages too fast.
Sheltered access.
Also a D. Shelters are full and 53% are unsheltered.
Criminalization and enforcement.
F. Utilizing Class E felonies without alternative legal spaces is structurally punishing.
Vehicle dwelling friendliness.
D minus.
Yeah.
The blanket bans force vehicle dwellers into hiding.
Outreach and social services.
C. Local right to counsel fights hard, but the health insurance cliff and charity liability laws drag it down.
And pathways to permanent housing.
C+. The local-state timeline conflict is messy, but the veteran housing victory is massive.
So, synthesizing all of that, the final perfectly homeless state score for Tennessee is a D.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The harsh legal landscape that criminalizes the unhoused simply outweighs the localized and veteran successes.
It does. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Since 79% of homeless children in Tennessee are doubled up with other families, completely hidden from the street, is the state's heavy focus on criminalizing visible outdoor camping, ignoring the vast invisible majority of the actual housing crisis.
That's the perfectly homeless state score for Tennessee. Thank you for tuning in. If you find the series interesting, please tap the like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you in the next state. If you'd like to support the project, click on over to the Perfectly Homeless Etsy store and get yourself a warm hoodie with our logo, or you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/perfectlyhomeless. Every purchase and donation helps fund future episodes in this 50-state journey through homelessness in America. Wear the logo. Start a conversation. Because homelessness isn't someone else's problem anymore. It's happening in every state, every city, and more neighborhoods than most people realize. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next episode.